How are you doing this fine day? Hope you're enjoying your week. Welcome to another survival challenge, in particular, a Unicorn Overlord survival challenge. Yeah, look at you thinking you Mike Tyson coming in, bobbing and weaving and dodging all that shit, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, bang, I get you right up the side of your head with a brand new survival challenge you wasn't expecting. Because you're thinking you're Holyfield Mike Tyson. You're not. You're that old decrepit one who fought the blonde dude, the gay one. I don't know his name. I just start this video just like roasting the fuck out of Mike Tyson for no reason. So today we're going to take 4 sci-fi fantasy fictional armies and we're going to introduce them to the Zenoirans, which if you haven't played Unicorn Overlord, that's like the great evil villains of the Unicorn Overlord story. And I'm doing this because they're fucking broken. And I just want to see how it's going to go. I just think it'll be interesting. And don't forget about the Rouga Rabid Discord. There's going to be a link down in the pinned comment to that. You can go there, chill out, hang with friends. I don't care. Doing so will also allow you access to the debate streams where you can actually come and debate live with me and other members of the channel, as well as it being a good way of keeping yourself updated on new Rouga Rabid videos the moment they drop. And if you enjoy this video, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, share, and join the membership. Remember, to join the membership, you get videos early. But I've wasted enough of your time. Let's get started. So a long time ago, there was this thing called the Zenoiran Empire. And one day, the Zenoiran Empire got super bored, so they're like, you know what, let's entertain ourselves, we're gonna go to war. Well, who are we gonna go to war with? Well, we're everything, we own everything, so we'll just go to war with ourselves. So that's what they decided to do, and boom, they started a civil war. A civil war is this thing when half the country starts to get a really big head and decides to turn into a bunch of fucking Nazis and just go on, take away a bunch of freedoms of other people in the country. Like when we were just sitting there minding our own business and these assholes come in and take all our slaves away. What the fuck? I thought this was America. This civil war lasted a really long time. The Zenoiran one, not the American one. That one was like 5 minutes. And then when it was all over, the half of the Zenoiran Empire that actually won looked around and realized that they just butt-fucked their entire country to the point that it was completely unlivable. Like, they salted the entire earth of their whole continent, and we're just kind of like, we can't live here anymore. We gotta go. So they built a bunch of ships, jumped on them ships, and sailed away until they eventually ran into a new continent known as Fevrith. And they're like, oh, this place is nice, there's flowers and shit, it's cool, it looks good, but there's people here. Let's kill them all and take over. So that's what they did. They killed them all and they took over and they set up a new Zenoiran Empire in the land of Fevrith. Now you would think after all of that, the Zenoirans would be good. They won their civil war, they went on and conquered an entire whole continent after they fucked theirs into the ground. At this point, the Zenoirans should be golden, at least for a couple hundred years until some overprivileged Zenoiran college students decide to start bitching, complaining because their ancestors displaced a bunch of indigenous people and now they need to start paying reparations and shit. But you got a little bit of time before you have to worry about that. Sit back and reap the benefits of your hard work. But sadly for the Zenoirans, that is not exactly what happened, because Fevrith actually has like a pantheon, I guess. I'm not really sure if pantheon is the right word. Okay, so you know the Holy Trinity from Christianity? Fevrith basically has an offshoot of that. Instead of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, they have the Father, the Holy Unicorn, and the Pontifex, which kind of makes up their pseudo-pantheon. The Zenoirans, being the very ambitious hard workers that they are, decided that they were not just happy with living in a completely conquered land having no issues for the next couple hundred years. Instead, they're like, you know what? We need more problems to give to ourselves. So they decided, hey, let's give all of our people immortality, and in order to do that, we're gonna go kidnap God. So they did. They went and they kidnapped God, specifically the Holy Unicorn, which would be like the equivalent of the Christian Holy Spirit, and then put that poor thing through all sorts of monstrous experimentation to try and extract the immortality from it, which they completely failed at. But in their experimentation, they did do a couple of cool things, like they created angels, and they were able to create a human with some holy-ish power called the Pontifex. It's like if the Pope and Jesus fused into one concept. That's kind of like what the Pontifex is, sort of. Anyway, after the Zenoirans did this to the Holy Unicorn, you can imagine the Father, God, was pretty pissed off about it and decided to curse the Zenoirans for all time. Basically, they all died and their souls were locked in this alternate, not heaven, not hell universe known as the Beyond for all eternity. Basically, the souls of an entire empire were trapped in limbo. And here's where they stayed for a very long time. I don't think we ever get an exact amount of time that passes that they're in there. We just know it's a while. Based on the Zenoiran ruins we see in the game, it's easily thousands of years. But after many, many, many thousands of years, this empire is broken up into a bunch of smaller countries and then ruled over by tons of different groups of people. The angels end up becoming their own race and taking over their own country. There's a country that elves take over, there's a country that bestials take over, and the entire continent just sort of moves on without the Zenoirans. That is until a little sorcerer known as Baltro decides to show his face into the story. So Baltro was a Zenoiran who was the absolute most powerful mage the Zenoirans ever had. He had all sorts of different crazy magical powers, but the main one that has allowed him to be alive for so long is he's immortal. He can stay immortal by feeding off the souls of others. We don't know if this is a skill he got from the Holy Unicorn itself when the Zenoirans kidnapped him, or if it's just something he kind of figured out outside of the Holy Unicorn, which is why he doesn't just have immortality, he has to feed on souls in order to keep it. Personally, I think that he did not take this from the Holy Unicorn, and this is just something that he figured out on his own, which is why it's such a corrupted version of immortality, unlike the Holy Unicorn, which is considered this very pure, good being. I just don't see the Holy Unicorn going around and sucking souls out of people to keep its immortality, you know what I'm saying? But Baltro's not happy with his soul-eating immortality and peak level mage abilities. He wants even more power. So what he does is he goes on and he reaches into the beyond and he pulls the soul of the leader of Zenoira out, the ancient leader who won the civil war and took over the entire empire. He takes Galerius' soul and sticks it into his ancient armor that at this particular point in time is worn by one of the generals of a country known as Cornea. This is General Valmor. When General Valmor wakes up one morning and puts his armor on so he can prepare for yet another beautiful day of being loyal and not slaughtering an entire royal family. From that point on, you could probably guess what happens. Galerius takes over the body of Valmor, starts a coup, and then wipes out the entire royal family. From that point on, he takes over the entire country, gets a ton of different soldiers under his command, and then proceeds to take over literally the entire continent for the second time. Now, as you play through Unicorn Overlord, there's actually this very big mystery that's sort of hanging over the head of the entire game, which, by the way, you probably should not be watching this section of the video or this video at all if you haven't played Unicorn Overlord and do not want to be spoiled from the entire plot. Kind of too late, already sort of spoiled a lot. You probably should have figured that out by seeing the title of the video that was going to happen, though. I mean, who can you really blame? Yes, while it's true, I didn't tell you there were going to be spoilers. I also don't believe there should be text on the side of microwaves warning you that shit's hot when it comes out. There's a certain point where common sense should take over. Anyway, point is, throughout the story of Unicorn Overlord, there is this ongoing mystery of how exactly Valmor was able to turn Queen Elenia, who is Elaine, your main character's mother, the queen that he betrays, her entire army against her. How was he able to turn literally everyone? People loved Queen Elenia. How is this possible? And how did he do it basically overnight? As the story goes on, you believe that you figure it out and that these people are being mind controlled by some sort of dark power. That is then later revealed to actually not be true, and the real truth is a lot worse and a lot more difficult to deal with. Basically what happened is Baltro figured out a way to open up a door into the beyond and then release the Zenoiran souls into the lands of Fevrith. All of the people who betrayed Elenia and all of the people who are working for Galerius as of right now are not actually people who are being mind controlled. They are people who are being possessed by the souls of Zenoiran soldiers who are still loyal to Galerius. And this is what made me want to do this challenge and why this seems so fucking impossible to overcome for most universes. The game also says on multiple occasions that there is an infinite number of souls that are housed within the beyond. I don't know how this is possible because you'd think as long as there was a beginning to the Zenoiran Empire, that means that there would be a limit to how many Zenoirans there are to put into the beyond. But no, according to multiple characters in the game, there is an infinite number of souls in there. So what do you want me to do? What you have here is an undead army of souls that will continuously come out and possess people across the land infinitely, that it doesn't matter how many times you kill them. When you kill someone who has a Zenoiran soul inside of them, their soul will leap out of that body and jump into another person's body, continuing the battle. Galerius is just a possessed suit of armor. Throughout the course of the game, you kill him multiple times and he keeps coming back because killing the person inside the suit of armor isn't actually killing Galerius. He's just a soul embodying a suit of armor that can move from person to person as many times as he wants to. In fact, at one point, the main character of the game, Elaine, actually kills Galerius. This is before he reaches his full power, by the way. And Galerius is shown being able to resurrect the body that was just killed by Elaine to just keep fighting anyway. Whatever happens to the body is not relevant to how Galerius is capable of fighting. So you'd think having an infinite army of disembodied souls that will continuously jump from soldier to soldier on the opponent's side, slowly killing them all until there's nobody left, would be a big enough challenge to have our survivors have to deal with, but that doesn't even scratch the surface. That's really just like the most basic thing they can do. On top of that, they have something called miasma, which is this giant purple smog that they can cover whole cities in, which drives everyone within the smog mad and mind controls them to follow the Zenoirans. This is specifically stated to be something completely different than the possession ability. It's actual mind control. So yes, they have the possession stuff, and they also have the mind control stuff. There's a magical plague that was created by Baltro that was just chucked at random cities, which is so strong the series' extremely advanced healing magic can't do anything to it. The magical healing abilities in Unicorn Overlord can bring someone who is on the cusp of death back from the brink totally fine, like nothing happened. It can cure any disease known to man, and it has absolutely no effect to this plague. The plague is so strong that the cities it was under effect of had to quarantine anyone who was infected and slaughter them all. These are the good guys, by the way. And even after doing that, it still didn't slow the spread. There's this item called the Bastorus Blue that has the ability to turn anyone, including whole armies, into beasts, as well as having the power to control all beasts, whether it turned it into the beast or it was a beast beforehand. This thing just has power over all beasts across an entire battlefield. It also, for some weird random reason, has the ability to control the weather. At one point there was a blizzard that was so strong no one could even walk through it because it would just push you away, and it was able to be completely dispersed across this large mountainous area with just a gesture. Baltro has the ability to resurrect an entire army of corpses from the dead very casually, and this is also shown to be something totally different than the possession thing. Like, the possession thing, the souls can come from beyond and jump into a body that's fine. Once that body's killed, the soul has to abandon the body and jump to another one. But even with that dead corpse there that a soul can't inhabit, Baltro can still bring that corpse back to life, and then it'll just be like a pile of bones and meat just continuously fighting until that also is brought down, and there doesn't seem to be any limit to how many times he can bring this fucking thing back to life. By the end of the game, when Baltro's at his most powerful, he no longer needs the Zenoiran souls or the corpses. He could literally just summon an infinite army of soldiers to fight for him from the beyond, like directly from the beyond, creating a fully working body from scratch without having to use an already existing one. Baltro himself is basically impossible to kill because of his link to the beyond. As long as there is at least one soul in the beyond, Baltro can't die. Or at least that's what you think, because you keep trying to kill him, nothing kills him. You eventually sever his link to the beyond, and then you strike him with this attack called Astral Blade, which basically is taking all of the souls of the Zenoiran Empire, trapping them into your blade, and then hitting him with an all-powerful attack. And even after this, while he does lose his connection to the souls, therefore loses the connection to his magical power, he still doesn't fucking die. Even the great sages don't actually know how to kill him, so the best thing they can do is like chuck him into this prison dimension somewhere, but nobody really knows how to kill him. And all of that stuff that I just said, that's just the stuff that's shown in the story. I haven't even touched on all the crazy RPG mechanics that you actually get to experience while playing the game. And it's an RPG, so you can assume it's a lot of broken shit, which, yes, it is. All the classics are here, like all the afflictions, burn, frost, shock, blindness, all that different crazy stuff. Then you have some of the other ones that are a little better, but still pretty common, like death touch, where you can literally just instantly kill someone regardless of how much health they have. But as you look deeper into the mechanics of the game, you start to realize there's stuff in here that is very specifically Unicorn Overlord stuff. And that's the juicy stuff. Like, that's the stuff that's really going to cause problems. Like, for instance, True Strike as a concept. In the game, you have a certain percent chance that you can hit someone. You can get this percent chance over 100% and still miss. However, there's an ability called True Strike that you can give to basically any character in the entire game, and it makes it completely impossible that you can miss. It does not matter whatsoever how much faster the person is or how little accuracy you have. You're literally making probability non-existent so that you can hit this person no matter what on the next attack. There's also abilities that have Guard Seal, which basically makes it so that when you hit somebody, you completely ignore all of their armor. It's like hitting a totally naked person, even if they have massive heavy armor with a massive shield. It doesn't matter. And once you inflict them with the guard seal, it's permanent for the rest of that engagement unless someone can take the debuff off of them with some sort of magical ability. You can also blend these types of abilities together, like using a true strike ability that has guard seal, making it so that you will hit no matter what, and the person you're hitting cannot defend in any conceivable way. Pretty much every character has the ability to on sight be able to look at an opponent and tell exactly how much experience they have, what weapons they have on them, how powerful they are, what abilities they have, so they can understand exactly what they're up against literally every time they go up against someone before they even start a fight. There's a lot of really cool abilities they have to control a battlefield in these grand scale encounters. Like at one point, a character is capable of making a massive sandstorm across an entire desert so that none of their enemies can see, but was then able to cast a spell on his own troops so that he could easily walk through the sandstorm and see everything as if it wasn't even fucking there. Not only blinding his opponents, but also making it very difficult for them to traverse while his entire army was totally cool. Characters overall have a vastly higher level of awareness across entire battlefields, even portions of the battlefield where they are not currently at, making it far easier for whole armies to not only strategize, but also individual soldiers to make the best decisions for their entire army. Characters have abilities like teleportation where they can get from one side of a battlefield to another side of a battlefield very quickly, so that sending reinforcements to different sides of a battle is extremely easy. They have all manner of different powerful items, like there's one item that undoes a seriously bad decision and actually kind of slightly alters reality as if that thing had never happened. This can even be used after you lose a battle. You can then use this item to be able to redo that part of the battle. It doesn't go back in time or undo it. It just makes it so that it kind of never happened. It's like very small reality warping. There's an item in the game that swaps the place of the sun and the moon. That's literally the description of power, and it allows you to change it from night to day and vice versa, which could be very useful in different situations for battle. Sometimes it might be more useful if it's dark, sometimes it might be more useful if it's light. The Zenoirans have angels and bestials in their army. Bestials get massive strength boosts at night, and angels get massive strength boosts during the day. Considering that angels are really amazing sky troops, and bestials are really amazing ground troops, depending on which one is more useful for whatever battle you happen to be in, it might be more useful for it to be one or the other. And I can go on and on and on. There's just so much shit that the Zenoirans, and not just the Zenoirans, but the entirety of the Unicorn Overlord universe can do as a whole that makes it very difficult to go to war with these fucking people. And you might be asking, well, if the Zenoirans are so ungodly overpowered, how the hell did Elaine and the Liberation deal with them in Unicorn Overlord? Like, how do you stop an infinite flooding of souls that will continuously take over all of your people? What did he do? And their answer to that question is that Elaine and the Liberation are given very, very specific powers that allow him to fight against these very, very specific problems. For instance, in Unicorn Overlord, Elaine has a ring called the Ring of the Unicorn, which allows him to purify the souls of the people around him. By the end of the game, he's capable of cleansing an entire battlefield of people very casually. It costs virtually nothing to do, meaning that the whole souls jumping into your people thing isn't really an issue for him at all. And you can kind of just go down the list of the powers that the Zenoirans have. For every broken ass thing that they got, Elaine has something that counters it throughout the entire story. As I said, normally it would be basically impossible for you to beat Baltro because Baltro just has an infinite number of souls flying into him, giving him infinite levels of power so that he can create an infinite army and can never die. But Elaine has the power to absorb the souls into his sword rather than Baltro. He basically disconnects Baltro from those souls, takes them instead, uses them in his sword so that he can strike Baltro down. Didn't kill Baltro, but at least he took away his ability to use his powers. And then from that point on, the 7 great sages had to come down and deal with Baltro once he was powerless. But again, these are very, very specific powers that most universes won't have access to. So it'll be interesting to see exactly how these other characters that aren't Elaine in the Liberation Army are going to deal with the Zenoirans, who are close to unbeatable for most universes. First up on the chopping block, we have Mordor from the Lord of the Rings series. Lord of the Rings is a niche little tale about 2 hairy gay black midgets who steal some jewelry of this perverted peeping Tom that won't stop looking at them and decide to take it and dump it into the mouth of a giant volcano surrounded by an army of guys in blackface. Now you're going to hear that description and think to yourself, hold up Rouga, that's not what it's about, and then you're going to stop yourself and then you're going to think about it, sort of interject within yourself. And you're going to come to a very uncomfortable conclusion. No, that's not accurate, but that is a lot closer to the plot of this story than you're comfortable with. So I'm aware that Lord of the Rings is a very powerful universe. I want to make that clear before I start duking all over it. I understand that within this universe there are characters like Morgoth that is basically a dark god, and the wizards are all angels from another universe who have insane over-the-top powers. Some people even claim that all these characters are like high-end multiversal and all kinds of crazy. I get it. I understand that it's powerful. They can't do shit against the Zenoirans. The Zenoirans are gonna beat them. Let me explain why. For one, the strength of an average Zenoiran soldier is significantly beyond anything that exists within Lord of the Rings in terms of the average strength levels of their basic armies. Doesn't matter what army you choose. It is not an uncommon thing for a basic bitch Zenoiran soldier to strike things with so much force that it causes small earthquakes. The Orks in Lord of the Rings don't come anywhere near this. In order for a basic bitch Zenoiran soldier to have a challenge in terms of strength, he would have to fist fight a fucking cave troll in Mordor. Speed is the same way. Again, your average Zenoiran soldier can dodge lightning. In Lord of the Rings, it takes a very high tier skilled soldier to dodge arrows. You also have the fact that this challenge is taking place in Mordor, not across all of Lord of the Rings, and with the bestial blue, which gives them the ability to control all beasts, Sauron basically isn't even gonna have a fucking army to fight. Everything from cave trolls to drakes to those little fucking dog things that the orcs ride around on are just gonna start turning on Sauron's army in the middle of combat. And if all of their beasts turn on them, that means that Sauron doesn't even have aerial options in any battle, because that's how Mordor fights in the air, by riding giant winged beasts. Zenoira will still have their winged beasts, so they will have all their aerial units, but Mordor won't have any. And none of this is even counting the possibility that orcs and uruks might also qualify as beasts. In the Unicorn Overlord universe, the bestials count as beasts, and the bestials are just anamorphic people. They walk on two legs, they talk, they think, they have a personality, they are not wild animals. They're just like anamorphic lions and anamorphic owls and anamorphic wolves and different anamorphic animals. And that qualifies them as beasts so that they can be controlled by the bestial blue. You can very easily make the argument that orcs and uruks in them would also qualify as beasts. They are giant, monstrous, inhuman fanged creatures. It is very, very likely that the bestial blue will be able to control them. And if that's the case, Sauron straight up won't have an army at all. That will only lead his absolute top tier people like the Witch King, the Hand, Saruman, the Ringwraith, people like that. And none of them can really do a whole lot. While it's a cool little ability that the Witch King can't be killed by any man, I mean, he's killed by a woman. But funny enough, even that power to not be able to be killed by man wouldn't be nearly as effective in the Unicorn Overlord universe, because like half of all the armies are women. There's a lot of equality over there in Fevrit. In the Lord of the Rings universe, like 99.9999% of the entire army is men. There's like one chick on the entire battlefield. If the Witch King shows up in the Zenoiran army and drops to the battlefield, every other dude is gonna be able to kill him because they're not a dude. Saruman is like the most powerful person in Sauron's army other than Sauron himself, and he's killed by being stabbed in the back by Wormtongue. Really? That's what we have to be threatened of? A dude who is stabbed in the back by worm? Oh, okay, I guess. Can someone remind me why any basic bitch Zenoiran soldier wouldn't be able to kill Saruman the same way Wormtongue did? Except, you know, not having to do it in the back because they're considerably more powerful than Wormtongue. I don't even want to hear anything about Lord of the Rings weapons being enchanted and all. Yeah, Unicorn Overlord weapons are all enchanted too. In fact, every single Zenoiran weapon is enchanted to increase things like magical defense and give them all sorts of other different cool little abilities. And if you want to talk about characters who quote unquote can't die, like the Ringwraiths, they've never had their soul just straight up ripped out of their fucking body. Characters like Baltro and Alcina and the Zenoirans have massive power over the souls and the afterlife. So none of these characters in Lord of the Rings that have like 1 foot in the afterlife and 1 foot in the living world sort of, you know, thing, the reason why no one can actually kill them, is really going to be much of an issue for any of the Zenoiran sorcerers who have the power over life and death in a way that would allow them to eliminate the Ringwraiths and other characters like them. And then if you go all the way up to Sauron, he's powerful, sure, and he'll be able to take on a lot of people, but he can't take on an entire infinite army. He wasn't able to take on an army of regular dudes in the Lord of the Rings story. One dude with an enchanted sword was able to kill him. Again, everyone in Unicorn Overlord has an enchanted weapon. It's not an unusual thing. If the Zenoirans sent an entire army after him, that army would be successful. And that's not even including sending the top tiers like Baltro, Galerius, or Alcina, who are all massively powerful magic users, and in Galerius and Baltro's case, they can't fucking die. And when they inevitably do kill Sauron, they're not gonna have to worry about the ring either. While it is true that the One Ring has the ability to corrupt souls, it's super fucking slow. I mean, Bilbo had that shit for like 50 years. A lot of characters are shown having it for days, weeks, hours, various amounts of times. And while yes, some people are more susceptible to others, it's shown that it can be resisted, especially in the short term. Not that that even matters, because there's not a single person in the entire Zenoiran army that would be corrupted by the ring. And the reason for that is they're already all cursed for fucking with shit they shouldn't be fucking with. They are cursed for all eternity to be trapped in the beyond, every single Zenoiran soul. They are aware what happens when you start messing with magical shit you're not supposed to mess with. And the absolute top tiers of the Zenoiran army are immortal master mages who fuck with souls, corruption, and all the same shit the ring fucks with. So characters like Galerius and Baltro, if they come across the ring, they're not gonna stupidly like start wearing it. They're gonna know. They are masters at the art of magic, and they fuck with magics that have very similar effects to what the ring can do. Most likely what would happen in a situation where Galerius or Baltro got their hands on the One Ring, they would either instantly destroy it by throwing it into the volcano, or if they can do it, they would just remove any remnants of magic or Sauron's soul from the ring and use it to power their future spells, if that would even be that useful to them, because Baltro has an infinite funnel of souls. Adding Sauron's soul to it probably wouldn't even make him any more powerful. They might just throw the shit in Mount Doom and be done with it. Yeah, there's no getting around it. Lord of the Rings straight up can't win against the Zenoiran Empire. Even if their army was in some way able to fight back, I haven't even gone over the whole their souls being able to constantly possess all of the orcs in Mordor's army. Like, they don't need any of that. This fight would be super short. Next up, we have the Flood from Halo. And this was gonna be super, super quick because I chose this pick before I really thought it through properly. And then as I was saying, next up we have the Flood from Halo. I thought about it and I just instantly realized this isn't gonna work. I've already talked about in the past how the Flood kind of runs into a solid fucking wall anytime you put it up against something that has magic, because magic works outside the realms of what Halo does. Like, the Flood is really good when it goes up against technological or biological opponents. It can just completely take them over. It's basically unstoppable. But the moment you have magic that can actually warp the fabric of reality and change the laws of physics, the Flood can no longer really be effective. And the Zenoirans have so many things on their side that would allow them to take control of or just completely wipe out the Flood. Like, for instance, I keep pulling this one out, but the Bastorus Blue should be able to control the Flood. The Flood would absolutely qualify as a beast. It's not a man, and it doesn't matter that it used to be a man. The Bastorus Blue actually has the ability to turn men into beasts and then control them after they're turned. The Flood is basically just doing half the job for them by already turning them into these monstrous creatures, and then the Bastorus Blue can just control them. Honestly, the moment the Zenoirans run into the Flood for the first time, they can just use the Bastorus Blue and boom, we got ourselves a fucking giant infection army. But even if I were to say that wouldn't be the case, there's no evidence that the Flood can defend against possession. Like, I would argue that the Flood wouldn't be able to be mind controlled normally because they have biological adapting abilities, but what is biological adaptation gonna do when a fucking magical ethereal soul jumps in and controls you? How are you going to biologically get over that? You can't. It's fucking magic. That's the whole point. In reality, even without the Bastorus Blue, the Zenoirans should just be able to throw a bunch of fucking souls at them, controlling all the little pieces, and even going into the grave mine, controlling the whole grave mine with enough souls, and boom, you have a Flood that has the mind of a bunch of different Zenoiran soldiers. And there's absolutely nothing the Flood could do about it. They wouldn't even be able to challenge them. Also, the fact that the Zenoirans don't actually have any technology, because it's like a medieval-based series, means that that whole aspect of the Flood wouldn't even be useful here. It would basically be like a normal sort of infection that only affects people biologically, and it wouldn't even be able to fully infect things biologically because there are characters like Galerius, who is just a possessed suit of armor. Yeah, I apologize. This is a really bad pick. The Flood doesn't stand a fucking chance. Next up, we have the entire Warhammer 40k universe, people are already going to be rolling their eyes. God, people fucking love 40k. I mean, they think it is the strongest shit ever. And it's very strong. I actually think this is a really interesting meeting because there are a lot of things that the Zenoirans have that make them like really dangerous to the entire Warhammer 40k universe, but they lack a couple of things that are completely 100% vital to having any success here. So just to give you an idea, if any army from the Warhammer 40k universe dropped down on a planet to fight against the Zenoirans on a battlefield, it's not going to go very well for them. The Zenoirans are not only physically superior to literally anyone in the 40k universe that isn't like a god or the Emperor of Man or some kind of other insane planet exploding being, because the average soldier can dodge lightning and cause earthquakes, which means even Space Marines won't be able to deal with them physically, but they also have abilities to completely negate a lot of the defenses of those people, like Guard Seal. And I actually didn't mention this earlier, but magic and Unicorn Overlord completely negates any physical armor, meaning that prize Space Marine armor that people like to talk about is going to be completely fucking worthless against the Zenoirans. But none of that even matters, because the fact of the matter is that none of these armies are capable of fighting against an army of disembodied souls. They can't touch them, they can't affect them. The vast majority of these characters have no way of defending themselves against being possessed by them. And the one thing that Warhammer 40k usually has going for it, which is the insane numbers, are completely dwarfed by the fact that there's an unlimited number of Zenoirans. So you'd think I would be coming to the conclusion that Warhammer 40k would lose and be completely obliterated by the Zenoirans. No, actually, because the Zenoirans have absolutely no space travel capabilities. It's a medieval universe. They're not that technologically advanced. If the Imperium of Man decides to show up and exterminate the whole fucking planet that the Zenoirans are on, they can do that. And there isn't a whole lot the Zenoirans can do about it. Will that solve Warhammer 40k's problems? No, because you can't blow up a bunch of disembodied souls. Now you just have a bunch of souls flooding into space that won't suffocate, because again, disembodied souls, and that will be traveling at a very, very slow pace, spreading across the entire universe. That's going to become a massive annoyance for literally everyone in Warhammer 40k. Like, imagine this, right? Some army, doesn't matter who, goes down to this planet where the Zenoirans are and decides to start a war with them. They fight for a little bit. Whatever army is fighting against them, doesn't matter. Orks, Imperium of Man, fucking Tyranids. They're fighting. They realize, yeah, we can't win this. Eventually, this leads to someone, somewhere, somehow blowing up the planet, wiping the planet of life, doing all that, whatever it is they do. Then they leave. The planet's just a fucking exploding rock. These souls are probably going to jump onto the ships that were there in the first place. Those ships are going to go back to wherever they were fucking at, spreading these Zenoiran souls to wherever they're going back. Those Zenoiran souls are going to start jumping into the bodies of people wherever they go. Now all of a sudden you have this sort of spreading soul infection that starts hopping like a possession sickness, like the flu, that starts jumping all over the place. The only people that can really deal with souls are either people who are in some way connected to chaos or psychers, which are very rare in the Warhammer 40k universe. So really what's going to end up happening is that the Zenoirans will just become another thing, another bullshit thing that everyone in Warhammer 40k are just going to have to deal with, right? You're going to be a Space Marine chilling, doing your whole thing. All of a sudden, you hear a story about how some massive Imperium warship or base on a planet somewhere starts getting the Zenoiran infection. And you're like, oh, fuck, now we got to deal with that. They're going to have to send a bunch of psychers over there to deal with it, to try and, like, cleanse the entire area of the Zenoirans, and this is just going to be a constant thing that they're going to have to deal with. They're not going to be able to wipe them all out because they don't have enough people in the Warhammer 40k universe to erase that many souls that are just going to be pouring out into the ether. There's also probably going to be some massive section of space wherever that original planet was blown up that's just going to get more and more polluted as time goes by. Because there's no evidence that these souls can travel at massively faster than light, again, it's going to be very, very slow spreading, but it's going to be spreading. Like, everyone who is going around in their ships and warring with each other and blowing up planets and stuff, they're going to be like, okay, this section of space, just go around that section if you can, because if you pass through there, pretty much everyone on your ship's going to get fucking possessed by Zenoirans. So just ignore it, go around. The Zenoirans are going to be something that is a significant threat and need to be dealt with when it is threatening, but it's never going to become a massive enough threat to the point that it becomes like a post-apocalyptic situation, because they're just not capable of spreading fast enough to actually threaten anyone in that way. The only possibility that I could see is if the Zenoirans at some point do learn how to do space travel, possibly by possessing people in the other armies who do have space space travel and learning from them. Or one really interesting scenario, if all the Zenoirans start to possess orcs, like in large numbers, and find out about the whole imagination power that they have, that's a broken power and it only doesn't work because the orcs are retarded. But if you have all the Zenoirans who are not retarded and they start possessing orcs and acquiring that power, and then they all just agree to believe the same shit, like the Zenoirans believe that they are the most powerful, most mighty, most amazing empire that has ever existed or will ever exist. This is what they believe. This is why they went around ruling everyone and spreading their ideology. If they start taking over orcs and getting that imagination power that makes anything they think become reality, the more orcs they take over, the more that thing will become true. They actually will be the most powerful, greatest empire that has ever existed. And they don't need to take over all the orcs. They just need to take over large numbers of them, and it will start becoming more and more true. And as this becomes more and more true, especially if they learn about the imagination power, which they should because pretty much everybody knows about it, they can actually start purposely targeting orcs to take that power and use it in a better way than the orcs can. That could possibly actually make them a much bigger threat. There are characters in the Zenoiran who have things like teleportation, but their teleportation sends them across like a country or a continent. It never sends them light years away. But if they start getting orc abilities, and they can just be like, oh, well, I imagine that my teleportation can send me anywhere I want to go. And in fact, we can send our whole army anywhere we want to go. Well, now they can fucking do that. It would completely change their entire situation. And if this started happening, there's no one who could really stop them. The only people who could are like the Chaos Gods and shit, but they wouldn't want to stop them. The Zenoirans bring all sorts of change and all sorts of war and all sorts of other stuff that make the Chaos Gods more powerful than they are. The Zenoirans would be like their favorite people ever. Now, do I actually think they're going to do the orc thing and start taking over orcs? No. Again, they travel way too fast. I actually don't see the Zenoirans really becoming a threat, like a massive threat to the Warhammer 40k universe for, I don't know how many millions of years, however long it's going to take them to travel from one planet to another without a ship. I just see them kind of hitching rides on ships that pass by. It's gonna sort of be like every time you get into a ship and travel to another planet, it's like going swimming and having to avoid jellyfish. Like, they're there, but most people who go and swim do not get stung by jellyfish. It happens, and it's a problem, and you have to deal with it when it happens. But it's not like there's a fucking massive army of jellyfish that when you walk into the water, everybody gets fucking stung. It's just gonna be something that occasionally pops up that people have to deal with. When it does pop up, big problem. They're gonna have to send in a bunch of psychers to solve it before it becomes an even bigger problem, but that's it. Just like a super hardcore nuisance. And honestly, a really fucking cool nuisance. Like, that would be something to add to the Warhammer 40k universe. A fucking soul virus that just travels through space and hitches rides on ships before like possessing all the people on board and mind fucks them all and turns them all into ancient like Zenoiran warriors. Like, that would be a cool concept to add in the Warhammer 40k universe, guys. But overall, I think Warhammer 40k is gonna be just fine. And I think that the Zenoirans are going to be just fine. They're just going to have to live with each other, really. Last up, but certainly not least, we have the demonic invasion from Doom. So inevitably, every single time I introduce a new survival challenge, people always ask me to put that survival challenge up against a different survival challenge that I've done. I never do this because it's dumb. I've heard all sorts of things like putting Super Earth against the Batman Arkham universe, or putting the Doom universe against the Cult of the Lamb universe. Like, people constantly ask me this, but it makes absolutely no sense because all of these different challenges have vastly different levels of difficulty, and it doesn't make sense to put all of these challenges together. They're not all equal. Some of them are significantly harder than other ones. So before you guys even fucking bother asking, I'll just do it right here to show you what it's like. And then you can stop fucking asking me, because I'm not going to do it anymore after this. The Zenoirans seem really powerful based on this video, right? How would they do against the Doom demons? They'd be instantly fucking corrupted and destroyed. It's a stupid, it doesn't make sense to put them together. The Doom demonic corruption has a multiversal spanning corruption power that is inevitable and turns everything body, mind, and soul into a demon that is then influenced by a multiversal cosmic god to enact his will. It doesn't matter if the Zenoirans are a bunch of disembodied souls. The demons can fuck with souls. So the one thing that makes them really awesome and strong is completely gone with. The fact that there's an infinite number of them, there's also an infinite number of demons. They are capable of infecting and corrupting an infinite number of beings across an infinite number of universes, so there would be no fight. The moment a Zenoiran soul dropped into the body of a demon, it would be instantly corrupted. It's literally placing itself into the source of where the corruption is coming from. They literally wouldn't be able to fight back in any way. So just understand from this point on, when I make survival challenges and I put characters up against these survival challenges, I am trying, at least to some extent, to make it somewhat not super one-sided, to be like, okay, what would be interesting about this particular scenario in this challenge that would be nearly impossible for them to overcome, but maybe something interesting might happen. That's the whole point. The point is not to put two things that are completely incompatible together and just watch one beat the dog diggity shit out of the other one. Like, that's not fun for me. This is a stupid challenge, but you know, I knew someone was gonna ask about it because they ask about it literally every time I do a new challenge. I just did a brand new Orks Must Die challenge not that long ago, and so many people were asking, what about Call of the Lamb? What about Doom? And all my other, I'm like, what are no, it wouldn't, like, it's a dumb challenge. Come on, people, be more creative. Think outside the box when you give me the suggestions. And if you want to give me those suggestions, make sure to go down to the pinned comment where there is a link to the Discord where I actually have a suggestion box that I read, and you can leave any suggestion you want on there. But that's going to be all for me. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, share, and join the membership. Remember, you join the membership, you get videos early. And always remember, y'all stay safe out there, you hear?